What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Luke here with a Monday Night Football preview. Going to go through some of my top showdown plays over there on DraftKings, and at the end, some of my top prize picks props that I'll be playing for this Monday Night Football matchup. We've got the Patriots, the Cardinals, two teams that have slightly underperformed to this point in the year. I'd say the Cardinals a little bit more so than the Patriots, but still playoff implications for the Patriots on the line. Two teams that desperately want to win, and of course, one that we can bet on, right? Whether it's for DFS, for the single game showdown, or over there on Prize Picks. So got to cover both of those for you. Some of the injuries in play, game scripts that might end up unfolding, everything you need to know to make all of those important decisions. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. We're going to start over here on the DraftKings side, taking a look at the player pool and some of my projections here for Monday Night Football. So you got ourselves a relatively close spread. Totals pretty average towards the lower 40s, and you have a 1.5 point spread favoring the Patriots. I tend to agree with that, but not so much in the method of win for the Patriots. Over the last 2-3 games, they've been a lot more successful through the air. They've let Mac Jones throw it. Stevenson has seen an insane target share through the backfield, and you've seen them pull out a few victories, especially against some top tier competition, divisional games. They fought the Vikings to the end, so on and so forth, and they have a lot of public steam behind them. But must we forget the first 3-4 weeks of the year, just how low everyone was on a Mac Jones? That offense in general, they had much more of a rush first identity. I don't know if I'm as sold on them as at least Vegas and a lot of the public are on that passing attack. So we'll talk about a few ways to differentiate, but a lot of people are going to be on that passing attack from the Patriots. Stevenson out of the backfield being a huge part of that. And on the opposite side, you've got the dumpster fire that is the Arizona Cardinals, that on paper are a much better team than the Patriots, are a lot more explosive on offense. Defense might not be quite as stout as what you've got with a Bill Belichick-led defense, but plenty of playmakers. I mean, a J.J. Watt that's healthy now, a secondary that has been banged up for much of the year, but they still have a few splash players like a Buda Baker out there, for example, that are capable of changing the dynamic. So I don't know if I think the Patriots should be favored here. I mean, you have Cardinals at home, right? They have that explosive offense. DeAndre Hopkins there, Marquise Brown. I'm not quite as sold on that game script. So for me, if I'm going to take the Patriots, I'm going to be a little bit more creative about it, taking maybe a Stevenson, hoping that he runs the ball a little bit more. Maybe they control that clock, time of possession, or able to kind of just squeeze it from maybe like at 100, 120 play game down to something closer to like 70 or 80 plays, or even less than that, right? Something in the 50 to 60s, like you see when a team is able to just completely take the air out of the ball. You've seen Bill Belichick-led teams do that in the past. And without Damien Harris, so we'll talk about the injuries now. Damien Harris is doubtful, probably not playing tonight, which means that it will be the Stevenson show for most of the evening. You also have Jacoby Myers out. On the Cardinals side, a few offensive stars like a Zach Ertz are out. Same thing with Rondale Moore. So a lot of that target share, a lot of the top end performances are going to be consolidated to those top tier players. Like it's Stevenson, right? Over there in the Patriots, a few, Hunter Henry, a few of those top tier wide receivers they have left over are going to get a majority of the targets, like a Devontae Parker. And then over there in the Cardinals, D-Hop and Marquise Goodwin, Marquise Brown. Goodwin yesterday went off for the Seahawks. That's why I'm thinking about him. Are going to get all of the targets though. So it's a little bit straightforward up top, but I think the way that you combine those players with those mid and lower tier options are where you're going to win GPPs, right? Everyone knows to play those guys that are getting all of the targets, a Stevenson, for example, right? But if they're taking the air out of the ball, they're running the ball with Stevenson a little bit more than they have over the past. Maybe you look at the Patriots defense, right? If the other team isn't going to score very often, maybe they can force a few turnovers. That's why they're able to run the ball so much. That's why they have a few extra possessions, is because the defense is getting the ball for their running back even more often. That's why there's so much correlation between running backs and defenses and large field GPPs. So considering that for tonight's slate, I don't think a lot of people are going to go in that direction. Maybe the kickers, right? Maybe you expect the offenses to stall in the red zone a little bit more of a possession first game with less touchdowns out there, right? Where let's say possession wide receiver over there for the Patriots isn't going to be a Parker. Maybe it's going to a Kendrick Bourne, right? Maybe it's getting to a Nelson Aguilar, because without Jacoby Myers, who's going to get all of those 5 to 10 yard targets? These are the sort of things that we have to consider when making our lineups. So I just wanted to talk about it from the top level perspective. We'll go player by player now. So up top, Hopkins makes plenty of sense. I mean, obviously has the highest ceiling of anybody on this slate. Now, my favorite captain, actually, this is incorrect on here. Stevenson's definitely supposed to be down as a yes. I'll go ahead and change that. Is Rhamondre Stevenson. I'm going to have him in about half of my lineups at captain. You can see right now, projected to be 26.5% owned in that slot. So mega chalk, one of the higher ownership percentages you're going to see for a captain. And then actually was a little bit higher to start the day. It was 30% plus when I first ran my projections here this morning, but as they've gone a little bit more mature throughout the day, as I've run a little bit more sims and analysis on it, I've gotten it down to 26.5%. So it's doable. You don't have to play them in 2/3 of your lineups, but the key thing here, right, is instead of assuming that maybe he's getting a lot of passing usage, like a lot of other people out there are going to, right, still playing with the Mac Jones, like I said, matching him up with the defense, maybe some of the kickers, a Tyquan Thornton, right? Maybe we expect him to vulture a touchdown on the ground later in the day, that sort of thing. There are ways to get unique within some of the chalky builds, and that's how I'm trying to approach this sort of slate. But Kyler Murray, because of his rushing upside, he's viable at captain. We've seen James Conner go nuclear more than enough times to try and get to him at captain. Brown and Parker are dart throws at captain. They're also a lot lower owned, particularly somebody like a Devontae Parker. So you're not investing a bunch of exposure there. But like I said, about half of my lineups are going to have a Stevenson. So I have 5 other players down as a captain right now. That is not likely to last throughout the day, particularly if Stevenson gets a little bit higher owned, right? If he gets closer to 35%, one or maybe 2 of the 5 other players I have marked down as a yes are likely going to find their way out of my player pool, right? Because you just can't play everybody, particularly when you're taking half of your lineups at captain with one player. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind always that these projections do change quite wildly throughout the day. And as they update, they are posted on the Patreon page. So if you're looking for my thoughts right before lock, that's where they'll be posted, right? That's where they're always posted out there. But with these videos, I try to give you an idea of what I'm looking at early in the day. So up top, you don't have to overthink it. You can see I have everyone in my player pool. I play 150 lineups, so I'm able to do so. If you're playing 20 lineups, always worth noting, you probably got to take 2 guys out of here, right? My first choice would be Mac Jones. He's still getting plenty of ownership, both at flex and captain, so he would be the first guy I vote off there. Then probably a Devontae Parker, and then probably a James Conner. I really like Brown here. I keep calling him Goodwin. It's just a mental block at this point. Stevenson's my favorite play on the slate. And then obviously a Hopkins and Murray I think are almost must plays too. So if I was playing a 20 max, if I was going with like a 3 max and really had to consolidate my pool, those would be the guys that I'm prioritizing up there. In terms of your mid-tier, this is where you can really change up your game script. A lot of people are going to play a Hunter Henry. A lot of guys are going to get to a Bourne and an Aguilar with the injury to Myers, also with just how pass-heavy the Patriots have been. So a really good way to pivot and to, just differentiate yourself would be to maybe go to a AJ Green, right? Rather than going to the Patriots wide receivers, go to AJ Green, who's going to get snaps. We've seen him play over the last few weeks, and without somebody like a Rondale Moore or Zach Ertz, he has to play in the red zone. He's one of their only large targets other than Hopkins, who usually is getting double teamed down there. So if you're looking for a one-on-one matchup, a little fade route, he's going to be the guy that's getting that target, right? If they're taking Hopkins out of it. So definitely has a path to get there to the optimal lineup. Kickers I love, especially when you have offenses I think are underperforming. The defenses I think will be adequately owned. I don't hate them as plays, but I'm personally not going to be getting there. When you get down to this value tier, you got to love the touchdown equity of somebody like a Jonnu Smith, also a Trey McBride. McBride is the starting tight end for the Cardinals, so I like him even more so than a Jonnu Smith. So that's worth noting there that Trey McBride is going to be by far my highest owned value pick down low. Greg Dortch, another solid value without Rondale Moore. A lot of those 5 to 10 yard targets that usually go to a Rondale Moore. Marquise Brown also gets a bunch of those targets. Dortch is going to suck up a few of those too, so I like him there at $2,200. Robbie Anderson, because of some of those injuries, could see even more playing time. Dortch, though, I like a little bit more. Is a little bit more established, knows the playbook. They're going to have set up plays for Dortch, which in a PPR format is great at $2,200. I mean, he could post us 3 catches for 40 yards, right? 7 fantasy points and pay off a $2,200 price tag. So we're not asking too much. Anderson's a little bit more of a wild card, but he's also a lot lower owned, right? He's 3.5% owned. That's essentially nothing out there, whereas Dortch is 5 times higher owned. So you're paying for it in the ownership department, not so much in terms of price. And the lowest guy in terms of price that I'm getting to is going to be a Tyquan Thornton. At this point of the year, there's not really this unknown quantities that we had for like the first 4 or 5 weeks where we'd get players at like $200 or $400 with legitimate roles on teams. They have everyone priced adequately here, which good on DraftKings, makes making lineups a little bit less straightforward, right? You have to actually think when putting together some of these lineups. But Thornton is your huge upside play guy, right? You're like 40, 50-yard touchdown. You're Shaheed's his last name over there for the Saints. You guys remember, right? Primetime slate a few weeks ago, he absolutely smashed. And he had been active a few games early in the year. He had smashed a week or two and then completely disappeared. Thornton is that same sort of player. He smashed a few times this year, but more often than not, he's posting you like 1-2 fantasy points at the very most. So if you're okay with that volatility, but you're okay with also scoring 20 to 25 points, something like 15, maybe 20% of the time, then he's your guy, right? In large field GPPs, these are the sort of plays that when they end up paying off, win you those sort of contests. So $1,400, he's a way to get different on that New England team. So rather than getting to some of these mid-tier wide receivers that sure have a much higher chance of being optimal, they're also more expensive and higher owned. That's okay, right? That's just going to put you in line with a lot of the other chalk. Maybe taking a Tyquan Thornton and spending up for a Hopkins and a Kyler Murray as your buyback is the way to actually get a little bit of leverage to the field, right? Just change up your lineup construction rather than the actual players that you're taking, because you can jam in, right? When you're taking a $1,200 player, an extra stud up top. So that's what I'm considering on the DFS side. All right, and now for our prize picks preview. So 2 props that I have my eye on. So one's going to be a reception prop. It is the over on Marquise Brown's receptions. So they have him at 5 receptions. He's absolutely smashed that his last 5. You can see he pushed over there against Seattle, but other than that has had 6, 8, 6, and 14 receptions. The 14 reception game, I believe, came without DeAndre Hopkins. So don't look into that one too much, but 6, 8, 5, and 6, that's a solid sample size. And now you have to consider that Rondale Moore is out. Rondale Moore is out. Same thing with Zach Ertz. Without those 2 players, that's extra targets going to a Marquise Brown. And considering that they are, at least as of right now, right, 1.5 point underdogs, even at home. So if we're expecting them to play from behind, have to pass the ball, I think that Marquise Brown is a great pick with a ton of push equity there at 5 receptions. The other prop that I'm taking is, rushing touchdowns. It was with Rhamondre Stevenson, who, if you're looking at his game log, right, run the other direction, right? He's had 0 touchdowns his last 5 games, but kind of like I was talking about with DFS, everyone is enthralled with this passing offense for the Patriots, and I don't buy it. To begin the year, they were a rushing first team. Sure, they've had a little bit of success of late, but if they're going to go out there, sell out against the pass, and give those rushing lanes to the Patriots, I can guarantee you that Bill Belichick's going to take advantage of it. Damian Harris is out of the fold. Mac Jones hasn't rushed for that many touchdowns this year, which means if they're going to rush for a touchdown, the Patriots, it's like 90% of the time going to be a Rhamondre Stevenson. You got to like them as the favorites, right? Any positive game scripts, just as Marquise Brown gets a boost because of the Patriots being favorites, so does Stevenson, right? When you're the favorite, you rush more, and when you're down, you tend to pass more. So that's really what I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this slip, right, is assuming that maybe the Patriots win this game, they get down into the red zone, and rather than passing like they have the last 3 to 4 weeks, they rush for a touchdown. That's kind of their identity. That's what we know Bill Belichick for, right? Those conservative decisions in the red zone and just pounding the ball down your throat, particularly this time of year when the weather starts to get nasty. So I just think that this has been a lot of volatility, right? This 0 for 5 here. He's a big back, somebody that's capable of moving the pile. You would think that if they get within the 10-yard line, the 5-yard line especially at some point in this game, that he's going to score that touchdown, that he's going to come through. I mean, he's got the same sort of size as a Jamal Williams. I think that this is complete variance. So you're going to see a lot of people out there, guys, taking the under on this prop. And of course, like it happens every time. You see like zeros, right? And they put out a 0.5 over. They end up hitting the over. So I'm taking the other side of that. I'm taking the trap play and throwing it right back in Prize Picks face. because like I said, they're the favorites out there. He's a big bruising back, and I think that's just variance out there. All right, fellas, but that is all I've got here from Monday Night Football. Hopefully you feel a little bit more prepared, whether you're playing DFS, playing Prize Picks, or both, to go after your process. We will be doing even more content throughout the week for the main slate here for week 15. We'll be doing that here with the extra time away from golf. Thursday night football, Monday night football for next week. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so you don't miss any of that when it drops. And also, go ahead and smash that like button if you enjoyed before you hop on out of here too. Best of luck with those lineups. Best of luck with any bets that you go ahead and decide to place. And let's get this cash, fellas.